And all right, Rob, we'll go ahead and get started with the third step prayer, if you will, please, sir.
You got it. Hi, everybody. Rob Cave, recovered alcoholic, and the third step prayer, which is on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Thank you very much. All right, we were on page 122 and we had just gotten started. So I think what we're going to do is going to just start over again. And that means that we'll start at the top of page 122, which is chapter 9, the family afterward.
The family afterward, page 122. Our womenfolk have suggested certain attitudes a wife may take with the husband who is recovering. Perhaps they created the impression that he is to be wrapped in cotton wool and placed on a pedestal. Successful readjustment means the opposite. All members of the family should meet upon the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. This involves a process of deflation. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, his in-laws, each one is likely to have fixed ideas about the family attitude towards himself or herself. Each is interested in having his or her wishes respected. We find the more one member of the family demands that the others concede to him, the more resentful they become. This makes for discord and unhappiness.
So
And why? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And why is it not because each wants to play the lead? Is not each trying to arrange the family show to his liking? Is he not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family life rather than give?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Rob, for that. The idea here is that there's a little bit of competition going on within the group that we've described here. It's to be expected, but it also is to be kind of as a warning and to try and avoid. The idea here is that each person has lost or is hoping to gain something back from the recovering alcoholic. And because of that, there's going to be a little bit of the elbowing and kind of posturing and trying to get, their needs met as either as quickly or quicker than other people. Now, they talk about this involves a process of deflation. All right. We're talking about the early stages of recovery right now. Point being is that, people are still on edge. They're still being very careful, very cautious, kind of still walking on eggshells, if you will. And there is some leeriness with regard to whether or not this is actually going to happen or not. Now, we'll find out that everybody does want it to happen. We're obviously assuming that it's happening, as we basically just say in the very first sentence there with the who is recovering, and so we're going to make the assumption that it's going to stick. But we've been here before where there's been a week, a month of sobriety. There's been some anticipation, and bottom line is that we've lost that. So there's going to, again, be some cautiousness from the rest of the group, even though once they see that things are starting to work, they're going to want this to actually, work for themselves. So, there's going to have there are roles to play, and we're going to kind of define that. There is a certain amount of support that's required, and at the same time, we're not putting the recovering alcoholic, like I said, on a pedestal. They should be treated as normal as possible and supported just like you would support anybody else in the family. Rob?
Yeah, in this chapter, as Leo said, it's a changing dynamic confronted with father's sudden sober life. Here is somebody that has isolated, has not been really involved much in the life of everybody because he's been drunk. He or she has been drunk. So everybody just leaves the person alone and goes about and does what needs to be done, leaving out the other person. So now this person is suddenly sober, and they want to be involved in everybody's life and back into the goings on of the family, where before everybody just ignored them or left them alone to do what they were going to do. Now they want to be integrated back into the family, and that is a challenge. Imagine teenage children. They've been doing their own thing, and all of a sudden, here comes the newly sober person, and well, where are you going? What are you doing? And it's like, whoa, wait a second. You haven't cared for the last 5 years. Well, you've been drunk all the time. Now you want to get involved in my life. So there's some difficulties that are going to arise, and so as one of the chapters said, time takes time. So everybody's going to have to give and take a little bit, and I love here it says, is he not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family life rather than give? Remember, we had talked earlier about, what can we give, not what we can take. The alcoholic has been, selfish and self-centered, and has only been interested in what is in it for me. So now they're saying, be a giver instead of a taker. Cessation of drinking is but the first step away from a highly strained, abnormal condition. A doctor said to us, years of living with an alcoholic is almost sure to make any wife or child neurotic. The entire family is, to some extent, ill. Let families realize as they start their journey that all will not be fair weather. Each, in his turn, may be footsore and may struggle.
Absolutely. And there will basically be kind of the pitfalls, the ups and downs, the speed bumps, and some smooth sailing. Not at all it's not all going to be stormy and rough. It's just that there's going to have to be some understanding, some patience, and there's going to have to be some time. This does take time, and we're not talking about a few days or a few weeks. We're talking about a few months for things to kind of normalize, or at least get back to a new normal, I would call it. And that's something that needs to be sat down and kind of talked about openly with the entire family unit. Rob?
Perfect. Sorry, just sending Kimball to let him know where we are. Yeah, Bill's trying to educate everyone on alcoholism and how to get the whole family involved. Top of page 123, everybody. There will be alluring shortcuts and bypass down which they may wander and lose their way. Suppose we tell you some of the obstacles a family will meet. Suppose we suggest how they may be avoided, even converted to good use for others. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. They remember when father was romantic, thoughtful, and successful. Today's life is measured against that of other years, and when it falls short, the family may be unhappy.
Yeah, the expectations are going to be running high, just like the alcoholic, or at least from my experience, I would be that 2-week wonder. I wanted to get everybody to a great place. I wanted to celebrate 2 weeks. I made it. I'm done. All things should be forgiven and we should move on, that type of thing. The same type of feeling is going to be had with the family, and that anticipation, that lack of patience is going to be there because they want it to be back to this kind of like utopia, kind of celebratory type of atmosphere. And they want things to be right and good right now, and it's going to take a little bit of time here. But the idea again is that you can remember how things were, if you will. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be how things are, and with that, you've got to kind of maneuver and stay open, stay communicative, and stay working together. And you will find that the more you talk, the more you communicate, the more you get your thoughts out, and the more transparent that you are, the better off everybody's going to be, even with some of the speed bumps that we talk about, the ups and downs, etc. Rob?
Okay. Family confidence in dad is rising high. The good old days will soon be back, they think. Sometimes they demand that dad bring them back instantly. God, they believe, almost owes us recompense on a long overdue account. But the head of the house has spent years in pulling down the structures of business, romance, friendship, and health. These things are now ruined or damaged. It will take time to clear away the wreck. The old buildings will eventually be replaced by finer ones, New structures will take years to complete.
Yeah, we're just talking a little bit about what we were just saying, and the fact is that time is going to be a necessity, patience, understanding, and a great deal of support going all ways, not just both ways, not just one way, but all ways. Rob?
Yeah. Father knows he is to blame. It may take him many seasons of hard work to be restored financially, but he shouldn't be reproached. Perhaps he will never have much money again, but the wise family will admire him for what he is trying to be rather than for what he is trying to get.
This is an important point. First and foremost, the alcoholic is to blame, and I'm not saying that we're all faultless except for the alcoholic. I'm just saying from the standpoint of the damage that was done because of alcohol, it was the alcoholic that was to blame. All right. Now, we are all human. We all make mistakes. We all live in the human condition. And so there's going to be enough blame to go around for other things. But from an alcoholic standpoint, or alcohol standpoint, it is the alcoholic. And it's important for that to be known. It's important for it to be acknowledged. And yeah, depending on how far down financially that somebody could have taken the family, it can take a while to get built back up. But if they are working towards that, then at least that's what they're doing, and it should be rewarded with regard and to and support. And understanding again, this is going to come up again and again with that. So good communication and hard work is going to save the family. Rob?
Now and then, the family will be plagued by specters from the past. The drinking career of almost every alcoholic has been marked by escapades, funny, humiliating, shameful, or tragic. The first impulse will be to bury these skeletons in a closet and padlock the door. The family may be possessed by the idea that future happiness can be based only upon forgetfulness of the past. We think that such a view is self-centered and in direct conflict with the new way of living.
Yeah, I'm talking a little bit about the difference between forgiveness and forgetness. And so the idea here is that we're not going to forget some of the problems of the past because we want to learn from them and we don't want to repeat them. So the idea here more is that we can forgive the past, but we don't forget. Rob?
Yeah, we shall not forget the past, nor shut the door on it. We use it to help other people. If we can save somebody else from going through the god awful things that we did or went through, to help them bypass the pitfalls, we use it to our advantage. That's where we use our experience, strength, and hope when we go and we talk, or we have a sponsee. We can help other people, hopefully, get through some of the things that we went through, so they don't have to go through it. And it's especially important that we carry this message in this book, to help other people so they don't have to suffer for as long as we did. Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently it is almost the only one.
Yeah, and the alcoholic can be a all-consuming entity within a family unit. So that is very true. And this is really just saying what we've already said, and that is just learning from the past experience. That experience is going to guide you, and again, trying not to make the same mistakes twice, or 3 times, or 4 times, etc. The idea here is that you learn from them and you improve upon things and make things better. Rob?
Yeah, Henry Ford is interesting. Just to back up a little bit, Bill wanted Henry Ford to give them an endorsement for the book. They thought it would lend credibility to the book and that it would generate enormous publicity and thus guarantee that a large initial sale of the book would happen. So Henry Ford plays a prominent role within our book. If only he had given the endorsement. He didn't, though. This painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problem. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding place. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them.
Yeah, basically, we're talking about turning bad to good, and it's really just that simple. And on top of that, we're also talking a little bit about kind of the step 12 for the family, meaning that we extend out to other families some of the value that we have gained from the experience that we have gotten from the old going into the new, and from the alcoholic now in the recovery, and good things are starting to happen. So share that experience with other families. Now, remember, for the alcoholic, if you extend out that help to another alcoholic, nothing will ensure immunity from drinking as to the helping of another person. So if a family is out helping another family, then by extension, that is also true. They're going to be stronger in their recovery. The support there is going to be much better, and things are going to actually go faster and be much better. So it's really kind of just thinking of, by extension, what we're talking about here with regard to a step 12. Rob?
Beautifully put, Leo. And that is a promise. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. That is a promise. It is possible to dig up past misdeeds so they become a blight, a veritable plague. For example, we know of situations in which the alcoholic or his wife have had love affairs. In the first flush of spiritual experience, they forgave each other and drew closer together. The miracle of reconciliation was at hand. Then, under one provocation or another, the aggrieved one would unearth an old affair and angrily cast its ashes about. A few of us have had these growing pains, and they hurt a great deal. Husbands and wives have sometimes been obliged to separate for a time until new perspective, new victory over hurt pride could be re-won. In most cases, the alcoholic survived this ordeal without relapse, but not always. So we think that unless some good and useful purpose is to be served, past occurrences should not be discussed.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those sensitive areas. We're talking about some relationships that were inappropriate during the time that there was alcohol involved. Some hurt feelings are there. It's going to take two very strong people to be able to come together, forgive and reconcile for some of the past indiscretions. And so doing that is going to be a tough thing to do. And there are going to be days when something is a trigger, or there's going to be a thought, there's going to be something done or said that's going to evoke a reaction. And in that, what they're trying to do is that, and they say at the very end, so we think that unless some good or useful purposes to be served, past occurrences should not be discussed. We should try and put those aside and behind us. Remember, we're not necessarily forgetting them, we're forgiving them and being able to try and move on. But again, this is in one of those sensitive areas that I think is going to be almost situation dependent, and it's going to take two very strong people. Well, it'll take a family's worth of strength in order to recover and reconcile. Rob?
Yeah, page 125, everybody. We families of Alcoholics Anonymous keep few skeletons in the closet. Everyone knows about the other's alcoholic troubles. There is a condition which in ordinary life would produce untold grief. There might be scandalous gossip, laughter at the expense of other people, and a tendency to take advantage of intimate information. Among us, these are rare occurrences. We do talk about each other a great deal, but we almost invariably temper such talk by a spirit of love and tolerance.
Yeah, we're getting into an area where we're talking about somebody that's talking behind somebody's back. they've got resentments. There's some ill feelings. And when we first started this chapter, we talked about being open, being honest, being transparent, good communication, sitting down and talking with the family. These are when you want to get those grievances out and talked about and get them out in the open and that type of thing. Harboring those ill feelings is nothing more than just harboring resentments, and resentments are going to be the undoing of a family unit that's in repair. So it's important to obviously it's one thing to talk about somebody, it's another thing to talk ill of somebody, especially if you're going to talk behind their back about it and cause unnecessary pain. And it does set back recovery. There's no doubt about it. Rob?
Beautifully put, Leo. Leo, this is where I love the fact, to say something ill of somebody, a lot of times, we mean it as a joke, but the other person doesn't take it. And the next paragraph will take that into account. I put something in the chat. It's called the 4 gates of speech. And what it is what I have to say true? Is what I have to say necessary? Is now the appropriate time to say this? Is what I'm saying kind? It's to pause. Take these things into account. Is it really, it might be true, but does it really need to be said? Okay. Is it kind? These are things we have to take into account. And if we can pause for a second, think about these things, it'll stop us from saying some things that we realize that what we think is a joke can hurt the other person. So please keep that in mind. Alcoholics are sensitive people, as we well know, because we are sensitive. Another principle we observe carefully is that we do not relate intimate experiences in another person unless we're sure he would approve. We find it better when possible to stick to our own stories. A man may criticize or laugh at himself, and it will affect others favorably. But criticism or ridicule coming from another often produces the contrary effect. Members of a family should watch such matters carefully, for one careless, inconsiderate remark has been known to raise the very devil. We alcoholics are sensitive people. It takes some of us a long time to outgrow that serious handicap.
Yeah, we alcoholics are sensitive people is basically it. Well, I would say it's an understatement. We're going to be very, very cautious about ourselves, and I think it's important here that we encourage not only the alcoholic from talking about other people, but the family from talking about the alcoholic. Now, in most cases, the family is going to be somewhat protective of the alcoholic within the family, especially if they're in recovery, and especially if things are going well and they're in a positive kind of place for recovery. But nonetheless, it does happen. And the idea here is that if it's about someone else, just basically keep your mouth shut, keep it to yourself. And unless you know for a fact that this other person would approve, which is probably less likely than what you might think, it's just not going to be there. Stick to your own story. Making fun of yourself is always a kind of a lighthearted way to admit a mistake or something like that. People are very receptive to that kind of description, and it should be something that you're encouraged to do about yourself, but obviously discouraged if you're going to be talking about someone else. Rob?
Yeah, and as you said, Leo, resentments grow out of this when people, think that they're being funny, but we take it serious. Resentments grow, and we know that they are fatal to the alcoholic. Many alcoholics are enthusiasts. They run to extremes. At the beginning of recovery, a man will take as a rule one of two directions. He may either plunge into a frantic attempt to get on his feet in business, or he may be so enthralled by his new life that he talks or thinks of little else. In either case, certain family problems will arise. With these, we have had experience galore.
Yeah. Bottom line is that, I go back to that 2-week wonder. There is a certain amount of enthusiasm. There's a certain expectation that people be accepting, that they be forgiving, and they move on. That's on the family side from the alcoholic's expectations, but from, the alcoholic, basically this is an achievement. It is something that they've struggled with, and they finally have been able to tap into that inner strength, rely on their higher power, and all of a sudden now they've got what it takes in order to recover and not only remain sober, but to adhere to the tenets of this program full and wholeheartedly. They want to celebrate. They want to jump into it. If they start wanting to work a lot, I guess what they're trying to describe here is that the person that's recovering is definitely going to be preoccupied with either work and or with the work associated with helping other alcoholics and themselves. Rob?
Yeah, and I can speak from my own situation, is that I came into the fellowship of AA, and I was going to meetings every night. Okay, kept me sober, and that's great. But my wife's going, well, what's the difference between him being drunk and him being out all the time? He's still not around. So what has changed? Okay, he's sober, but not around. Balance in life. And that's what it comes down to. We have to, which is so difficult. When I joined the fellowship, they talked about, cutting the pie, into even pieces. Well, it's never going to be even, but we can't neglect the family. Okay, we've neglected them long enough. So, so my way of doing it, I took my wife to some of the open meetings, just so she could see the people I was hanging out with, what I was getting out of it. Because I would come home. She said, you leave the house with a frown, but you come home with a smile. What is happening? And she couldn't understand, and she thought, well, is it me that's making you unhappy? It wasn't her. But as we all know, when we go to the fellowship, we're not a glum lot. We have lots of fun. We smile, we laugh, and we have a great time. We're dealing with a serious illness, but you know what? We have fun with it. People that relate to the craziness that we all do. So, as I said, I talked to some long timers, and they said, bring your wife to some meetings. Let her see what's going on. Let her see the fun that you're having, that the people you're hanging around with. So that was great advice from the long timers that I got. Most people don't like to be called old timers, so that's long timers. We think it dangerous if he rushes headlong at his economic problem. The family will be affected also, pleasantly at first, as they feel their money troubles are about to be solved. Then not so pleasantly as they find themselves neglected. Dad may be tired at night and preoccupied by day. He may take small interest in the children and may show irritation when reproved for his delinquencies. If not irritable, he may seem dull and boring, not gay and affectionate, as the family would like him to be. Mother may complain of inattention. They are all disappointed and often let him feel it. Beginning with such complaints, a barrier arises. He is straining every nerve to make up for lost time. He is striving to recover fortune and reputation and feels he is doing very well.
Yeah, and this is back to what Rob was talking about, that balance and the attention that is needed at the particular task or in the environment that they're working in. And the point being here is that, yes, it's good that the person recovering is finally able to go to work, be there on time, hold down the job, and start to make an income again, which is very vital for the survival of the family from a economic standpoint. But still more, just as valuable, is that time that they spend with the family and work towards that. So really, you're talking about the alcoholic. They're going to be tired. They're going to be worn out. They've got to find some energy to actually be attentive to the family. But at the same time, the family needs to understand that there's only so much of the alcoholic to go around. And I'm not making an excuse here. I'm just saying, in reality, that is that if a person's working hard, and let's just assume that they are working hard, that's going to be something that wears them out, and they're going to want to try to, take it easy and recover on their time off. Now, the value here is that at least if it's talked about, if it's made transparent and there's good communication, then this ill feeling that we're talking about here will be minimized. If not, it's gonna be right at the forefront. But point there is, a little bit of time for each and every person or unit, family unit, I guess I'm gonna call it that. It sounds almost scientific. I don't mean to. Bottom line is that there needs to be some understanding going both ways. All right, that's really what I'm trying to say, is that there's understanding going both ways, but there's only going to be understanding if there is good, clear communication between all of the family members. Rob?
Sometimes mother and children don't think so. Having been neglected and misused in the past, they think father owes them more than they are getting. They want him to make a fuss over them. They expect him to give them the nice times they used to have before he drank so much, and to show his contrition for what they suffered. But Dad doesn't give freely of himself. Resentments grow. He becomes still less communicative. Sometimes he explodes over a trifle. The family is mystified. They criticize, pointing out how he's falling down on his spiritual program.
Yeah, the human condition is the way I like to describe this, and that it's, we all are human. We all are going to find ourselves short-tempered and out of energy, and that's going to happen. The idea here is that if the resentments are starting to grow, well, we're kind of in a dangerous place, because the more the resentments grow, the more the risk there is with regard to a recovering alcoholic to relapse, and we don't want that to happen for any reason whatsoever. And again, if there's not good communication, then it's just going to drive wedges in between individual family members, and people are going to be there's going to be gaps between them, and that's not going to be good. So the idea here is that as soon as there starts to be any kind of ill feeling or the inkling of a resentment, it's time to have a family discussion, or at least a one-on-one with the recovering alcoholic, to try and talk through it, so that there's the ability to try and overcome the resentment. Rob?
Okay, we're right at the bottom of page 126, everybody. This sort of thing can be avoided. Both father and the family are mistaken, though each side may have some justification. It is of little use to argue. It only makes the impasse worse. The family must realize that Dad, though marvelously improved, is still convalescing. They should be thankful he is sober and able to be of this world once more. Let them praise his progress. Let them remember that his drinking wrought all kinds of damage that may take long to repair. If they sense these things, they will not take so seriously his periods of crankiness, depression, or apathy, which will disappear when there is tolerance, love, and spiritual understanding.
Yeah, the more there is the more support there is, the more positive things can be. And yes, we've already talked about the time it's going to take to repair a lot of the problems that arose during the time of the alcoholic was drinking. And again, they just need to start at the foundation of this. First and foremost, this alcoholic has gotten sober. Second, they've gotten a spiritual life. And third, they're working on a program of recovery. And all of those things are things to build off of and should be remembered and celebrated. And then from there, it's just think, if we're celebrating something like that, there's good feeling going around. When there's good feeling going around, the other things that might be out there are less, less critical. And that's kind of the idea that they're trying to get at here, is to start with that foundation and build from there. Now, once they get to what you might call the advanced phase of recovery, and that is that we're now able to talk about some of these resentments and some of the problems, et cetera, there's, that's when you open up those lines of communication, and each side, obviously has some justification. The alcoholic is tired. They're really trying hard. It's a struggle at times, and on the family side, it's the expectation is high, and the wants and the needs are also right at the forefront. And everybody has a role to play. Everybody has something that they should be getting out of this, but at the same time, it really kind of boils down to what can they give, and the more that they're in the mode and the thought process of giving, the better off things are going to be. Rob?
Yeah, remember Bill got sober and it took him a long time to find a job. So he was plagued by waves of self-pity and depression because he couldn't find work. These are things. So what did Bill do in order to get himself out of that funk? Won't help another alcoholic. He'd go to the hospital, and there his spirits would be raised. The head of the house ought to remember that he is mainly to blame for what befell his home. He can scarcely square the account in his lifetime, but he must see the danger of overconcentration on financial success. Although financial recovery is on the way for many of us, we found we could not place money first. For us, material well-being always followed spiritual progress, never preceded.
And that is a warning right there. For us, material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded. Both are important, obviously, and we've talked about that. But really, the idea here is that you've got to start with that spiritual life, and the progress that you make spiritually is going to enable you to go out and recover financially. But it also is within the family itself. And, we've said this before, they're just repeating it, they're just reinforcing it. And that is a reminder that most of the problems that were created are of the alcoholics doing, and the time that they were drinking certainly does that. And it's going to take time. I'm still, little things still pop up here and there with my own family, and I still have to, make amends and stay the course in regards to understanding and being tolerant and patient with others, as I'm also expecting them to be tolerant and patient with me. Rob?
Yeah, as you say, this is a warning. For us, material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded. Whatever we put before our spiritual, we will lose. So please keep that in mind. Mark that down, highlight it, do whatever you can, put a sticky note beside it, do something in order to be able to come back. Because, when you're working with a sponsee, it's really important to let them know that, you can't put anything in front of spiritual. Since the home has suffered more than anything else, it is well that a man exert himself there. He is not likely to get far in any direction if he fails to show unselfishness and love under his own roof. We know there are difficult wives and family, but the man who is getting over alcoholism must remember he did much to make them so.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those important things to remember. If you're not, you got to start within the house, your home. You're with your family. Everything begins from there. If you're not showing that love and support back on your family, then you're on very fragile ground, and that's going to backfire. So the idea here is that the foundation of recovery is starts at the home and within the family, and it's the people that you love the most. So why not be the most supportive and show the most love for them and understanding. Rob?
Yeah, the best way to check and see how a sponsee's doing, go talk to his family. How is he around the house? Is he happy? Is he miserable? Is he kicking the dog or the cat? That's a terrible metaphor. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that. But is he happy around the house? Is he miserable? Because in meetings you can have one persona, and then when you go home you can have another persona. With the spiritual life, if we're living it, we are the same no matter where we go. And we're not trying to gain something for ourselves. Remember, we were selfish and self-centered. I say that every week. I know. But we were, we're always looking to see what we can get for ourselves. Now we should be, what can I do for you? What do you need? You need help with your homework with the family. Whatever needs to be done, for the wife, can I help you with this? Can I go shopping with you? Can I become part of your life again? And that's the big thing, is we're trying to integrate ourselves back into the family life, because we've, taken ourselves and, just sat there and drinking,
Yep.
whether at home or out. At the end, I was drinking at home all the time because it's cheaper to drink at home, and nobody gave you a hard time. You didn't have to drive or do anything else. So, save an awful lot of DUIs and things like that, unfortunately. But we're trying to integrate ourselves back into the home. It takes time. As each member of a resentful family begins to see his shortcomings and admits them to the others, he lays a basis for helpful discussion. These family talks will be constructive if they can be carried on without heated argument, self-pity, self-justification, or resentful criticism. Little by little, mother and children will see they ask too much, and father will see he gives too little. Giving rather than getting will become the guiding principle.
Yeah, we've been talking about this. This is kind of a lesson here with regard to the resentments that everybody's going to have, and naturally they're going to have them, and it's legitimate that they're going to have them. But this is demonstrating a positive, and that is that each family member is willing to communicate their resentments, willing to get them out in the open. But here's the other part of it, is, again, part of the lesson is to not do it with heated emotions, self-pity, self-justification, or any kind of criticism there. If you try and take the positive on it, then things are going to start to work. And if you take the negative, all you're going to do is exacerbate the problem. It's going to get bigger and bigger. Some of them may fester to the point that there's an explosion of some kind, and there you are. You're back to square one or two, when you should be at square 4 or 5. The idea here, and we're going to take the positive. We're going to make the assumption that the family themselves are able to communicate effectively, that they do it with a positive kind of approach, and in the end, they find out that the giving is the important part, not the getting. And if everybody's giving, then everybody's getting. Right? There we go, Rob.
It is in giving that one receives. Sir Francis C.C. Prayer. Assume, on the other hand, that father has, at the outset, a stirring spiritual experience. Overnight, as it were, he is a different man. He becomes a religious enthusiast. He is unable to focus on anything else. As soon as his sobriety begins to be taken as a matter of course, the family may look at their strange new dad with apprehension, then with irritation. There is talk about spiritual matters morning, noon, and night. He may demand that the family find God in a hurry, or exhibit amazing indifference to them, and say he is above worldly considerations. He may tell mother, who has been religious all her life, that she doesn't know what it's all about, and that she had better get his brand of spirituality while there is yet time.
Yeah, the one of the notes that I have here is, too much of a good thing is still too much. So
Yeah.
Idea here is that there's a kind of a thought here, and that is that, one, you've got somebody that has found a spiritual life. They want to celebrate it. They not only want to celebrate it, they want to share it. They not only want to share it, they want to ensure that everybody's doing the same thing around them. And it's not always going to be necessarily the case. Here is going to be that temperance that we're asking for. And bottom line is that you want to have that spiritual life. You want to have a spiritual experience. You want to live by spiritual principles, but you don't want to force it over onto other people. You don't want it to be a situation that you find that you are, not dealing with other things, not talking about anything else. I mean, again, it just gets old after a while, and you don't want that to happen, because all you're going to do is push people away as opposed to drawing them in. Rob?
Yeah, and this comes back to the fact that, and they said this earlier in the book, show me, don't tell me. If they see how happy you are, they will want to take part in what you're doing. But if you're miserable all the time, are they going to want that? No. So show me rather than tell me. When father takes his tact, the family may react unfavorably. They may be jealous of a God who has stolen dad's affections. While grateful that he drinks no more, they may not like the idea that God has accomplished a miracle where they failed. They often forget father was beyond human aid. They may not see why their love and devotion did not straighten him out. Dad is not so spiritual after all, they say. If he means to right his past wrongs, why all this concern for everyone in the world but his family? What about his talk that God will take care of them? They suspect father is a bit balmy.
Yeah, so this is really, again, kind of just a reminder, one, that that you do have somebody that's recovering, and by recovering, that's a good thing. It's a reminder that this is still a good thing. Number two is not to take it to the point that it's a failure upon yourself, because it's a reminder here that that father was beyond human aid. So if that's the case, which is the case, then you, no matter what you said or did, was going to help in getting the person to recover and to stop drinking. And again, you've got this recovering alcoholic that wants to be around other alcoholics, and being around other alcoholics takes time away from the family. And so the idea here is to try to balance that out, and try to spend that good time with other alcoholics and outside people of the family, and then at the same time work with the people that are in the family and spend time doing that as well. Rob?
He is not so unbalanced as I might think. Many of us have experienced dad's elation. We have indulged in spiritual intoxication, like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn in over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feel he has struck something better than gold. For a time, he may try to hug the new treasure to himself. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product.
Yeah, I highlighted this paragraph. It's very important from the standpoint of the value and what you found by finding the spiritual experience and living by the spiritual principles. And the idea here is that, again, and we're talking about giving and not getting. It's what you gain out of this whole positive experience is only measured by how much of it you're giving away. And that's an important distinction. And it's something that we have to remind not only the alcoholic, but also each of the family members as well. I think what we'll do, Rob, is we'll bring Bill in at this point, and we'll stop there for today, and then pick it up where we left off next week.
Beautiful.
Yeah, am I unmuted?
You are unmuted, Bill.
Okay, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This here chapter that we're talking about here, the family afterwards, like we said, Bill's trying to enlighten everybody on alcoholism. He's trying to give the family some kind of suggestions or some information on how to deal with an alcoholic or somebody that's just trying to get sober or whatever. And he's giving us some suggestions or some direction or what should be done, how to deal with the person. He mentioned the word recovering on page 122. That's the only time in the book it uses the word recovering. It does mention it in a footnote on the beginning of Two Wives, but that footnote was not in the first or second edition. That went into the third edition in 1976. So I don't count that as being part of the book. That's something that was added, 37 years after the book was originally printed. So, and I think when he's talking about recovering in this point, he means somebody that's still trying to stop drinking. They haven't quit yet. they're not recovered, they're not to the point where they've achieved sobriety. And basically what he's telling us is we're supposed to use our past to learn from. You know, your past is not a failure if you learn something from it. That's basically what Henry Ford was talking about. That if we turn it to good account, it can be a good thing. Even if it was a bad thing when it happened, if we learn something from it, it's going to turn out to be a good thing. And he's also giving us different information on here when we should bring things up or when we should not talk about the past. And you can always ask yourself, do I have a good enough reason to bring this up? It's not a good idea to bring stuff up that's going to start trouble. If it's going to start trouble, you're better off just letting it go. You know, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? You're better off just forgetting about a lot of stuff. And he talks about sometimes we relate intimate experiences of others. We're not supposed to do that. We're not, like Leo said, you're not supposed to talk about people behind their back. You know, it's better off to keep your mouth shut about other people. Don't talk about your own experience. Tell people what happened to you. Don't tell people what happened to somebody else. That's not a good thing to do. Unless they come over and they agree that it's okay to talk about them, it's not good to do that. No, there's a saying from Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, great minds talk about ideas, and average minds talk about things, and small minds talk about other people. So when you hear somebody talking about somebody else, you can pretty much assume they have a small mind. And we're not supposed to do that. And he also tells us in here, we're supposed to have balance. You know, if we don't have balance in our sobriety or in our family life with whatever else we're doing, things are not going to work. You know, we really, really, really have to balance this whole thing out. You know, just because you put the plug in the jug, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden everything's going to come up roses. You know, if you take the rum out of a fruitcake, you still have a fruitcake. We still have a lot of work to do on ourselves. You know, just because we stop drinking doesn't mean that now we can just go ahead and do anything we want because, look, I'm not drinking anymore. Hooray for me, pat me on the back. It doesn't work that way. We have work to do, especially with the people that are closest to us, because usually those are the people that got hurt the most by our drinking. I know you may have to make amends to somebody that lives on the other side of the country and all that kind of stuff. But most of the stuff that we did to hurt people, we did it to the people who were closest to us. So we have to remember that when we're getting sober, we have a lot of work to do with our own family before we have to worry about everything else. And Bill's just trying to give us some suggestions here. And even though this was written to the family, there's a lot of information in here for us that we're supposed to follow. He's trying to show us, you know, how we treat other people. And now it's time for us to, you know, stand up on our own 2 feet and fess up to what we did and make good on everything. And sometimes that's not easy, but that's what we have to do. And that's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Rob, let's go ahead and close out with the serenity prayer and then we'll open it up.
Sounds great. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.